Hey, it's your friend Choice CJ here, and here's my team builder for week 3 of the UBL. And we have a very special opponent this week. We are going up against Dan, aka A-Drive, coach of the Minnesota Vikavolts. He is off to a little bit of a rocky start this season, but I think that people are sort of overreacting. And it's funny given that I think people overreacted to the team that he initially drafted. So let's go over his roster real quick. So he has a Selgor, Gengar, Alola Ninetales, Jirachi, Manaphy, Rotom Heat, Mega Altaria, Gogoat, Scrafty, Donphan, and Wobbuffet. So let me come back to that statement real quick. So Dan was pretty happy with his draft, calling it probably the best team he ever drafted. And on paper, it makes a lot of sense because you have Ninetales to set up Aurora Veil for several very scary setup sweepers. Namely Manaphy and Altaria, but there's other mons that are also potentially scary. Like DD Scrafty behind Veil is not to be slept on. And Calm Mind Jirachi or Power Up Punch Jirachi is also very good in that situation. And then he was really high on Tier 5 Wobbuffet because he could use that, to trap and to remove some of the threats that would prevent those setup sweepers from succeeding. Yeah, a lot of people were really hyped about his team, saying, oh, how do people let Dan draft this, etc., etc. And I think the team is pretty good, but I don't think it was, the greatest team that has ever been drafted. From there, Dan proceeded to go 0-2, losing a very, very close game to Uzi, and then, just getting up against a good opponent and not playing to the best of his ability versus Styx. And so then now, people are really down on Dan's team and saying, oh, this is nearly as good. And Dan himself is saying, oh, I really want to make a lot of transactions. This team isn't really great after all. So it's funny. The team went from being really overrated, I think, to being really underrated because this was a really hard matchup to prep for. Really, really hard. Because I don't think I can sufficiently cover all of his threats. With the squad that I have. So I have to make some judgment calls on what I think he will bring or won't bring. And so if you look at my team offensively versus him, there's a lot of huge threats in this matchup. Sneasel is really good versus the majority of his team. Lopunny is very free because it can run Adamant versus a lot of his team. And he doesn't have a really good counter to it. Usually you want, a bulky Psychic or potentially a bulky Fairy, either of them rocking Helmet, to deal with Lopunny, but his Fairy type cannot hold a item because it's his Altaria. I guess you could run, you can run, you Fairy type with Ninetales, but Ninetales doesn't resist the high jump kick, which is what you really want with a Lopunny check. And then there's also Wobbuffet, but Wobbuffet I think can be pretty easily dealt with otherwise. And it still takes a chunk. If I get it to 70% or so, I'll two-shot with Frustration. So I don't think it's that scary. And so there's a lot of things that he struggles to deal with on my end. And so based on the team that I have, what I'm expecting is this. I'm expecting an Intimidate Scrafty, potentially Fizdef, because that's his best way of dealing with things like Sneasel. That's the main thing. It also is a really good switch into Necrozma, which is also very, very scary versus his team. He could likely bring a defensive Gogoat, because Gogoat's really good for dealing with Breloom, Diggersby, Quagsire, Heliolisk. So that's something that's also pretty likely. He could bring also a physically defensive Altaria, because I don't think he has any choice but to bring that. He just doesn't deal with Lopunny otherwise. Other than that, there's a few other sets that I'm potentially expecting. Manaphy, I'm not really anticipating a Z-Rain set. He could, in theory, run just Scald and Ice Beam. And then that does pretty well versus most of my team. That just can't break so well versus Heliolisk and unaware unaware Quagsire. Those two mons can deal with that set relatively well. Because Heliolisk, it's, a Scarf Heliolisk set is so obvious in this matchup. And then if I'm unaware Quagsire, I can probably beat Tail Glow Ice Beam. I don't think that that's all that bad. Or Tail Glow Surf, for that matter. I guess Surf does a little bit more damage to Quagsire than Ice Beam does. So, like, I'm not necessarily expecting that. He could run just, like, Tail Glow 3 attacks, but if that's the case, I can Revenge Kill that with Lopunny fairly easily. And I also have, like, my Necrozma and my Togekiss, which are bulky enough to take +3 water moves. There's also a non-zero chance he brings, like, a defensive Manaphy. Something that I think would be really good versus me is, like, Toxic Rest Manaphy. You look at the squad that I have on my screen, I don't have any way to deal with that. So that's definitely scary. Rotom is somewhat likely, I think, to deal with Togekiss, Heliolisk, and to some extent Breloom. And yeah, other than that, maybe Ninetales, just because Offensive Fairy is so good versus my team. So yeah, let's only recap that. It's Scrafty, Gogoat, Altaria, Manaphy, Rotom, and Ninetales is kind of what I'm expecting. You know, he could also bring, like, Gengar. Gengar is really scary versus my team. I guess I have 3 normal types to be immune to its attacks, but you know, it has coverage moves to hit all of those mons. So you know, I think Gengar could be a good bring. Selgor outspeeds my whole team, so it's definitely possible that he brings that. But those are mainly the 6 that I'm expecting. So with that in mind, like, I had to basically build, you know, trying to beat that sort of team that he's gonna bring. So right off the bat, like, if he chooses to bring, like, Z Rain Dance Manaphy, I probably lose. If he brings Agility Altaria and Agility Ninetales, I probably lose. You know, so there's just things like that I sort of had to say, okay, these are not as likely, so I'm not going to prep for them. I'm going to prep for the more likely things. And so with that thought process, here's the resulting team, now that I'm 7 minutes into my team builder. So we're starting off with a Sneasel with Focus Sash. This was a suggestion from Envy, actually. I want to give a big thanks to actually everybody who helped me team build this week. Envy, Leo also gave me some tips. And yeah, just the whole front office, of course. Omega Jolteon, Bronson, The Confusion, Jacob as always, Skyrander, who else did I forget? Tyler, Fantabase. I think that's everybody. Oh, and Josh, Ultra Player. So big thanks to all of them. Definitely appreciate them looking out for me. So this set is really good versus all of his team. There's a reasonable chance that I'm going to lead this Mon, because I think it's a pretty good counter lead versus a lot of his team. So, like, if he wants to lead, like, Donphan or a Selgor or things like that, like, a Selgor, I can use this Sneasel to have it only get up 1 layer of rock, a layer of spikes. If he wants to Final Gambit me, I will be able to survive that, which is nice, because I have my Focus Sash. And yeah, just this coverage versus his whole team is really good. It stinks not having Icicle Crash, but Poison Jab is pretty important for Ninetales, which otherwise sort of walls me. And then Poison Jab still hits Altaria and Gogoat extremely hard. The only thing it sort of leaves less than desirable coverage for is the Donphan. But yeah, I think that this can apply a lot of early pressure to his team. And then, yeah, it outspeeds basically everything not named a Selgor. So he has to, you know, have a Scarfer to Revenge Kill it, basically, which is pretty nice. Enough speed on here just for Gengar. We don't actually have 0 IVs here. I don't know why that is there. It's 31 IVs. So this is my first setup sweeper that I have. My second setup sweeper that I have is a pretty standard looking Venomoth set, Quiver Dance Sleep Powder. So this is really good versus the majority of his team, just because it breaks through pretty much everything that he has. What's funny is that his best way to deal with this is like a Gengar, because it quad resists both of my stabs. You know, it only, because of Tinted Lens, it only reduces it 2x, which is nice. Like, you know, like I get that benefit from my ability. But, what was I going to say? I do have the Poison Z to deal with Gengar, so if we can get to +2 with this Venomoth, Poison Z one-shots Gengar with no investment. If he's like something cheeky, like offensive, or like a Soft-S Gengar, like a bulky Gengar, then I won't be able to deal with it quite as well. But that means that he's not Life Orb, he's not Specs. I can, you know, I can potentially survive a hit from it, especially because I'm going to be boosting my special defense. But yeah, like basically, if I can just put something to bed, get up a few Quiver Dances, I'm in really good shape versus his team. I can really plow through just because he doesn't have any really great checks for dealing with Venomoth. Not that any team has really good checks, honestly, but anyway, so that's the second setup sweeper, and then my third setup sweeper is Necrozma. So this set I'm pretty excited for. SD, Photon Geyser, Knockoff, Brick Break. So Figgy Berry with this investment It takes a maximum of 88% from Shadow Ball, from Life Orb Gengar, and it takes a minimum of 75%. So if we're at max HP, or if we come in on rocks and we go for a Swords Dance as Gengar comes in, or he tries to revenge kill my Necrozma or something like that, I will survive. I will gain 50% from my Figgy Berry, and then I'll be able to knock it out with Photon Geyser. If he doesn't bring Scrafty, this Pokemon is sort of hard for him to deal with, I think. Just because it is so naturally bulky. And so I should be able to SD on a lot of his team, as long as they're not able to status me, like Will-O-Wisp Rotom would be really annoying. So let's try not to have that happen. The attack investment allows me to two-shot physically defensive Altaria with Photon Geyser at +2. Because that's really the set that I'm expecting, like I explained before. So, 3 setup supers. Oh, we have enough speed on here for, it outspeeds Jolly Scrafty, and then it also outspeeds like Min Speed, Manaphy, and Jirachi. In case he chooses to bring those. Jirachi, Min Speed, I can kind of see. Manaphy, not so much, unless it's like a Fizz Def variant like I was explaining. But yeah, basically I want to use these 3 Pokemon early game to clean up for Lopunny late game. That's really my plan. They could, any of them could potentially win the game on their own, but that's not necessarily what I'm trying to go into the game with. I've got 2 pivots here, and then I'll show you the Lopunny set. It's a very standard Lopunny set. But we have a Baton Pass Togekiss with Roost Thunder Wave. So this is, nothing special, really. The reason I wanted Togekiss is because I wanted a good switch-in for Scrafty, which I felt like was a really big threat versus my team. And that was the feedback that I got from a lot of my front office as well. So I wanted something to be able to switch into Scrafty. I wanted something to be able to switch into a Selgor, because a Selgor is really annoying. It does get poison coverage, but, we're pretty bulky. We should be able to live that. We have a specially defensive spread here. And then we can Thunder Wave, and we can go for Roost and, stuff like that versus the Selgor to get back up to full HP. Yeah, Air Slash is just good versus the majority of his team. Anything not named Jirachi or Rotom, of course. This Togekiss, yeah, it also has the benefit of being able to live a +3 Surf from Manaphy if we need. I guess that's assuming he's not running Ice Beam. Like, maybe he's running Surf Energy Ball, right? That does pretty well versus, any team that doesn't have Breloom and Druddigon, so maybe he'll feel like he could bring those. But we can live that. We could potentially T-Wave it, and we have enough speed investment on here that we can outspeed a +1Z Manaphy after it's paralyzed. So that's the thought process with the EV spread for the speed, and then yeah, we live a +3 Surf with the special defense investment. Rest just goes into defense. Next we do have Shukaberry Heatran. So this is my fairy counter this game. This is my way of dealing with either Altaria and or Ninetales. Pretty standard looking set. Flash Cannon, Lava Plume, Stealth Rock, Toxic. Flash Cannon is there to hit the fairy super effectively. Lava Plume is just nice versus most of his team. It hits Jirachi super effective, etc. Stealth Rock is rocks, of course, and then Toxic. Toxic I thought was nice because like if he wants to come in with Manaphy and try and set up on me, at least I can Toxic it. And then even if I have to sack my Heatran and then sack another Mon, like basically what I can do is if I can Toxic it, I think then go into my Lopunny, I can Fake Out. I can then sack another Mon, I can go back into Lopunny and I can Fake Out. And during all those turns, Toxic damage is going to rack up. So it doesn't make me setup proof, but this is kind of the main member of my team that I feel like is bait for Manaphy. The other Mons I don't think are going to be too vulnerable to set up Manaphy, except maybe Sneasel, you could say. So that's what I'm thinking with this Heatran. We have enough speed on here. It's the same speed as Necrozma for Jolly Scrafty and for no speed Jirachi. Then last but not least, we do have Lopunny here with an Adamant Nature, Double Stab, Fake Out, and the Baton Pass. So Baton Pass is there if he wants to bring Wobbuffet to try and counter my Lopunny. Just because then I can easily switch out into probably Sneasel, but also Necrozma potentially. Both of those Mons should be able to set up really easily on Wobbuffet, and Venomoth too, of course. Venomoth is going to be in a really good position to deal with that. So, yeah, I think just because his best switch-in is Altaria, if we can, limit that thing's health, we should be able to two-shot it with Frustration, which would be really good, especially if we get up Rocks. Like, Rocks would make it a lot easier to deal with the Altaria. for this situation. So yeah, that's the team. And the team builder, as usual, was pretty long. Actually, no, it's about standard for me. I went through the actual team part pretty quickly because I explained most of my thought process before we got into the team. So yeah, so like we'll know pretty much at team matchup if I did a good job prepping or not. If I don't see Scrafty and I don't see Ninetales, I'm gonna be a little sad with the team that I constructed. Because like Fake Out Lopunny is really good for dealing with Ninetales. No Scarf Heliolisk would have been really good for dealing with Manaphy. But I left that on the bench. And then Togekiss is there pretty much specifically for Scrafty. So if it's not there, it's not that it's total dead weight, but it's not nearly as valuable. So we'll cross our fingers and hope that we can catch another dub. We are 2-0 this season, and I'd like to continue that streak. And part of the reason that this win is very important, of course, is because in Week 4, we've got another big matchup. We're going against 6-Foot Hacks, a.k.a. Leo, good pal of mine. And we are going to be, if we lose this match and then we have to go up against Leo, that's going to be another tough match. So we potentially are looking at 2-2 after a 2-0 start, which would not be good. So we need to win at least one of those games, preferably 2. And we will continue our season. So thank you guys for watching. The battle, I'm not sure when I'm putting up my team builder. I don't know if I'm doing it Saturday or Sunday, but my battle's not going to be going up till late Monday because the time that I'm recording this is Saturday morning. We're just now doing our battle, and I have to go to, I have a little vacation planned for the weekend, so I'm not getting back until Monday, so the soonest that I can record the battle is Monday. So hope you guys can stay patient until then. Of course, Dan's side is going to be up, so if you want to watch his battle and his team builder, he does them in one video. You'll be able to go to his channel and check out that action. So, yeah, once again, thanks again for watching. Make sure you check out the channel for other gaming and Pokemon content. And until the next time, I'll see you guys later.